Subscribe to our channel by clicking the subscribe button. Click the bell button and enjoy the latest uploads from our channel.
We're provided with a different method to if, else if, and else statements. These are called switch statements, and they switch the code they execute based on the answer that is provided. Here's what the switch syntax looks like. In our example, we have variable age is equal to 22. Switch, in parentheses, we have a variable that we want to switch. And then again, we use curly brackets to contain our code. Now this time we have more code to put in here before we can actually put the code that we want in there. So we have our first case, and I just named that x1. And then we'd put our code in here and break. Case 2, I just named that x2. Also notice that there is a colon there. Our code, break, and then semicolon. And lastly, default, colon, our code, and then break. We use the switch variable to switch the comparison. Then we use case x, so we have x1 and 2 above, to change the case, or the comparison. This can include operator comparisons such as case age is less than 18, colon, or exact string value such as case string value, colon. If the cases match, the code below it is executed, followed by the break line. The break means that the code has been executed and it will not try case 2 or default. If case x1 or case x2 were not able to get matched, then the code after default will run. Think of it like this. Case number 1 is the if statement. Case number 2 is the else if statement. Default is the else statement. So why even use this method if, else if, and else statements work just fine? To simply put this, it's easier to write. And here's an example. A variable name is equal to Caleb. We wrote switch, and then the variable that we want to switch. We wrote case, Bob, quotations around it because it's a string, colon, meaning that our case is finished, and then our code. We just wrote, alert, your name is Bob. Then we have another case, Billy. Same thing, alert, your name is Billy. And then we have a third case, which is Caleb, alert, ding, this is the one we want, and our default value. And this will just say the name variable does not match anything above. So when we click example, ding, this is the one we want, it executes this. This is very much so like writing if name is equal to Caleb. Or I guess in the third case here, because it's not the first one, it would be else if name is equal to Caleb. I'm going to explain the break, just because I don't think I did a very good job earlier. So we have our case, in this example, strings, our code here, and then break. And break means that once this code is done running, it's going to break out of the switch and it's not going to try to run any code below it. So what this will do is it will prevent default from running, or this break will prevent all of this from running. And this just makes sure that this is the only code that gets executed and nothing else below it gets executed. Now that stays within the switch. So I can't stress enough, never forget the break line after the code in your specified case. But just so you know that the break is not needed in the default case. That's because, well, what's it going to break out of? It's going to break out of the switch anyways, but it has nothing else below it to run. Remember, default is like the else statement. It has to be at the bottom. And because there should be nothing else below it, there is no need to have the break here. I do suggest writing it. It's not going to hurt your code. It's not going to break your code or anything. It's just a good practice to get into. This way, when you write another switch statement and you go to execute a part of it, a certain case even, and you can't figure out why 1 or 2 cases or 3 cases are mixing together, that's probably because you're missing the break. Also, never forget the colon after the case comparison. What this means here is our case is being opened, so pretty much saying if name is equal to Caleb. Essentially, that's what it looks like. Again, because it's not the first one, it would actually be an else if name is equal to Caleb. Let me fix that there, kind of a typo. So because this is the third one in, it would actually be the else if, not the if. But anyways, that still gets the point across. And always remember that strings need quotes, like here and here. If you were just doing, for example, our first one, age is less than 18, then we could just write that. But with the switch, basically we're saying if name, which matches up here, is equal to whatever your value is. Remember, here was Billy. And that's what it's doing. And just like the else if statements that we covered, the switch statement can have as many cases as you like. Just remember to break them at the end of each case. And if you're still wondering what break does, it breaks out of the switch statement so that the rest of the code, or everything below the break line, will not be executed. It stops running it from there on in. Now you might be looking at this and thinking, this does not seem easier than an if, an else if, or an else statement. Well, it really is. You just have to get used to it. A lot of people don't use switches, and I think that's just because they're a little bit more intimidated by what the code looks like than how it actually works or how to write it. Once you get a good grasp on a switch statement, they're very, very easy and very, very handy. Especially if you just want to do something really quick. If you want, 10 else if statements, it's easier to do this than to write else if 10 times. But now you know that there is an alternative way to using if, else if, and else statements. We can use a switch statement.